from the douchebags over there, but you're all still here doing the right thing, because we're not going to get nothing out of it, but our children and our grandchildren will. Islam has got a very proud 1400-year history of infiltrating different countries with a small minority of people, then appealing to the good nature of that country by claiming victim status whilst pushing for special privileges, all designed to stop any criticism of Islam. Then, when the Muslim percentage of the population grows, so does the violence, intimidation and persecution of non-Muslims. Eventually, when Islam is a majority, there is no such thing as rights for the minority groups. They're either killed or they live as second-class citizens. So when Islam is a minority, they're obsessed with the rights of minority groups, but when they're the majority, there's no such thing. A few examples. Afghanistan used to be a Buddhist country. Pakistan used to be a Hindu country. I think one of the previous speakers, he's from Pakistan, I believe. He looked like a bit of a white supremacist to me. You're a neo-Nazi. These different stages of jihad that Islam implements, they've been very successful for about 14 centuries. And guess what? Right now, Islam is currently expanding in Europe at an exponential rate. So Islam's been a very successful conqueror over the last 1400 years. It's been screaming down the highway of conquest at 200 kilometres per hour, but it's just hit a very, very big fucking roadblock. Sorry, kids. That roadblock consists of several million pissed off Australians. You know, Australia doesn't have a 1400-year history of conquest, but what we do have is people from all different walks of life who have brought different skills, experiences. Bear with me. I should have kept that bloody stand. And attitudes to the table. Our struggles have brought us to a point in history to embrace values such as freedom and dignity of the individual, freedom of speech, equality of man and woman, and a proud multi-ethnic, not multicultural, multi-ethnic, because we don't want Islam's bloody culture here, as well as a list of other values that we hold dear. And when Aussies see any of our values come under attack from some 7th century misogynistic death cult, you better believe we're not going to roll over like a scared little politically correct dog and take it. We're going to educate people to recognise this threat and give radical Islam the hardest friggin' bitch slap it's ever felt. Now, I know for a fact there are a lot of war veterans in this crowd, and I can confidently say that I speak for all of them when I say that we've had a gutful of all our different governments, the media and the traitors in our society, constantly working against us to advance the Islamic agenda. And the Islamic agenda is very, very clear. Islam's intention is to take over every society it infiltrates. It started with a few tribes 14 centuries ago, and it now has 1.6 billion followers that have overrun nearly 50 friggin' countries. Big deal, hey? They haven't taken us over yet, but guess what? They have intimidated us. You know, when I served overseas, I had to wear Kevlar everywhere we went. And down in Sydney right now, the speakers that are doing what we're doing here, they have to wear a bulletproof vest. I never thought I'd see the day when I'd have to wear, or anyone would have to wear a bulletproof vest just for speaking the truth about a friggin' religion. Now I'm willing to bet that a lot of people have been told by their friends and relatives that we should not be fighting against Islam because we have families and we are putting them at risk. Do you know what I say to that? And you can thank Cheryl for this one. The bitch came in handy. Just kidding, Cheryl, I love you. I say it is them and that ignorant chicken shit attitude that has put my family at risk. That weakest piss attitude combined with all the different governments letting in tens of thousands of Muslims into this country have put my family at risk. The fact that they refuse to recognise the threat, or they're just too scared to speak out about this threat, has put my family at risk. In this country, non-Muslims outnumber Muslims 40 to 1. If they're afraid to speak out now, how afraid are these gutless people going to be when their numbers increase? And they will. All the soldiers that have died in every war we've had did not give up their lives for our generation to simply roll over and die in the name of political correctness. So it's time to launch a rocket up these people's asses and force them to grow a pair of balls because their cowardice is affecting all of us. Now there is an absolute overwhelming amount of evidence of Islam's evil in our faces every day. And yet people like us are labelled by the lunatic do-gooders as haters. I mean, they just want us to bury our heads in the sand and ignore the 25,500 Islamic terrorist acts since 9/11. Ignore the 270 million murders that have been carried out by jihadists in 1400 years. And ignore the fact that Muslims have made their intentions for a worldwide caliphate very, very crystal clear. The reason they want us to ignore this is because they're either gutless cowards. Well done, that man.
The media is 20% owned by Saudi Arabia.
I love this bloke.
The royal family are 20% of News Corp.
We're gonna, these people are afraid of being called a nasty name, like a racist or a Nazi. Either that or they're ignorant of the facts, or they're just traitors. And the excuses we're hearing over and over again by these morons is that all religions have their extremists, You can't tar all of them with the same brush. Look at the Crusades. Look at Anders Breivik. Look at the IRA. Look at the KKK. Look at the Christians bombing abortion clinics. Blah, blah, blah.
What about look at Wahhabism?
Stop getting us off the topic and look at fucking Islam. Shit, I saw again, sorry. But since they want to always bring these points up, let's address a few, shall we? First of all, the Crusades happened 1,000 years ago. Get the fuck over it. Secondly, the Crusades only started because Muslims were invading Christian territories for over 400 years, killing thousands of people, before the Christians finally snapped and launched the Crusades in a defensive act. Not an offensive act, it was a defensive act. Next, Anders Breivik. He was the evil nutjob who became insanely radicalised because of the constant crimes against his fellow countrymen by Muslim immigrants. And do you know what? News outlets all around the world reported on this evil, sick massacre for months, even years after it happened. Because an atrocity happening like this is very, very rare. What the mainstream media did not report was the fact that on the exact same day he went on his massacre, there was 9 Islamic terrorist atrocities on that exact same day, the 22nd of July 2011. They never got 1 second of media attention. Yep. Next point. Andrew O'Keefe, he likes to compare the abortion clinic bombings. The last abortion clinic bombing was done in 2009. Muslims are averaging the death counts from a bombing like this every 4 hours. Yeah. Next, the KKK. The last KKK murder was in 1981, you dipshits. The reason we don't hear about all the Islamic atrocities is because they'd probably be running 24/7 for starters. And it happens so often that they're not even newsworthy anymore. there has been 25,500 since 9/11. But unless a bomb or a massacre kills people in the hundreds like the other day, they don't report it. All the little 5 people and 10 people getting killed every single day doesn't even rate a mention to the mainstream media. To give you an idea of how in the dark we are, on the same day the Martin's Place siege occurred, there was 70 people killed in other places around the world by Muslims in the name of Islam, and yet not 1 second of these murders were in the news. The IRA stands for Irish Republican Army. That conflict had nothing to do with religion whatsoever. A big hint is the name, Irish Republican. But it is true, every religion does have its extremists, but the extremist murders that are happening in the name of Allah outnumber all religions combined tenfold. When was the last time, I saw a sign earlier, a Christian cut off someone's head whilst, love you bro, whilst reading from the Bible? When was the last time a Buddhist yelled out, "Buddha is great," before detonating a suicide bomb? I'm halfway through. Muslims, on the other hand, are going on a worldwide bloodthirsty rampage, killing anyone who has not done anything to them because the fucking Quran tells them to do it. Another lie that the medias and the far left wingers keep repeating is it's only a tiny minority that are radicals. Pew Research, which is one of the most respected research mobs in the world, conducted extensive research into the morals and beliefs that Muslims hold dear. Indonesia, 50% of over 200 million people want strict Sharia law, not just for Indonesia but for the whole world. 70% of them blame America or Israel for 9/11. 55 million Egyptians want strict Sharia law everywhere. 135 million Pakistanis want Sharia law implemented everywhere. I think you do, don't you, Daniel Scott? Yeah, the West Papuans are getting slaughtered left, right and centre. Yeah! 82% of the Bangladesh Muslims want Sharia law. 60% said honour killings of women can be justified.
Bullshit! Bullshit!
3% of Nigerians want Sharia law. 83% of Iranians want Sharia law. 99% of Afghanistan want Sharia law. Surprise, surprise. In the West, 35% of French Muslims said suicide bombing can be justified.
Bullshit! Bullshit!
78% of Muslims living in the UK right now, they want cartoonists of Muhammad prosecuted. I'd love to see research done on how many Muslims around the world would like to see Israel wiped off the map. Yet according to the far left nutjobs over there, we're the Nazis. One of the main character traits of a Nazi is anti-Semitism. So let's go there, shall we? These idiots on the left that call us Nazis and yet they stick up for Islam. If you morons had done 5 minutes of research, you'd realise that Hitler had an entire Muslim army fighting for him in World War II due to their mutual hatred of the Jews. Adolf Hitler also wrote a book called Mein Kampf. Professor Bill Warner from the Centre of Research into Political Islam has extracted every single verse from Mein Kampf, and he also did it from the Islamic texts. Do you know how much was devoted to extreme Jew hatred? 7% from Mein Kampf, 9.3% from the Quran. And yet these idiots and the unwashed crowd, they call us the Nazis. You know what, during the Holocaust, the Nazis actually had Jews helping them kill their fellow Jews in the gas chambers under the threat of their own lives. These Jews were telling the others that it was all going to be okay, it was just a shell that they were going to have, and basically lying and deceiving their fellow Jews into willingly accepting their own death. These Jews that were lying were called Sonderkommandos by the Nazis, which just means special unit. Well, guess what? We've got our Sonderkommandos too. They come in the form of lying left-wing journalists, lying two-faced politicians, and the willfully ignorant do-gooders who refuse to accept reality. Every single time there is an Islamic massacre, you see these treasonous bastards coming out, drooling from their treacherous teeth, repeating the same old crap like, it has nothing to do with Islam. Islam means peace. The fact that these people are sticking up for an ideology that is almost identical to Islam. I mean, on my way here, I saw billboards of celebrities and advertisements on them. Over in Palestine, they got billboards on every street corner of martyrs, people that have killed Israelis. The Muslims in Palestine glorify these terrorist bastards, and yet these traitors call us Nazis. It's a sad state of affairs when people who actually have the balls to tell the truth about Islam, they're not just subjected to death threats from Muslims, but they also have to put up with a barrage of insults from traitors we have here in the form of journalists, politicians and douchebags.
Well said.
You know, little truths, like the fact that Muhammad married a 6-year-old child named Aisha. He consummated that marriage when she was 9. Started over 60 wars, slaughtered thousands of people, or the fact that 800 people's heads from the Banu Qurayza tribe were beheaded in a single day. Gee, I wonder why ISIS is beheading people. Could it possibly be that they're trying to imitate someone? Nah, that'd be racist, wouldn't it? Now, why are so many people eager to protect Islam from criticism? You know, Pauline Hanson was here earlier. I saw on TV, Darren Hinch and her go head-to-head on this topic. So Darren Hinch, he's quite happy to do jail time for exposing pedophiles, but he doesn't have the balls to speak out about the most famous pedophile the world's ever known. Because according to people like him, Andrew O'Keefe, Joe Hildebrand, Studio 10, and virtually all the traitor bastards of the ABC were all racists.
What race is Islam? Show me it on a map.
Now, we've covered the Nazi slur, how about we address the racist slur, shall we? There are black Muslims, white Muslims, brown Muslims. If I were to criticise the pedophile priest in the Catholic Church, would anyone call me a racist? No. What about Islamophobe, hey? A phobia is an irrational fear of something. It's not irrational to be concerned that there has been 25,500 Islamic atrocities since 9/11 in the name of Islam. 2 days ago, 150 Christians slaughtered in Kenya. And we are the evil left, and the left-wing nutjobs speaking out about that. Where are they?
Yeah, where are they?
Oh, that's right. They're more concerned that some Muslim woman in a burqa playing the victim card is having people look at her and shake their heads. Here is the cold hard truth for these people. If you cannot see an obvious connection between the 109 verses of violence in the Quran and the 5 deadly terrorist acts committed in the name of Allah every single day for the last 15 years, that it's not because the connection isn't there as clear as day, it's because you are refusing to see it. You can't blame these idiots for trying to constantly force tolerance down our throats. In most cases, tolerance of other people's beliefs and cultures is a good thing, but I've got a challenge for people who insist we show tolerance to Islam's evil teachings. How about you dress your wives and girlfriends or daughters in a sexy swimsuit, give them a can of beer, give them a ham sandwich for good measure, and get them to go for a walk through Lakemba during Ramadan. See how tolerant they are of you. Or better still, try and build a church in Saudi Arabia. Tolerance is a two-way street. Now, me personally, I couldn't give a rat's ass if someone worships a cricket bat. But I do care if someone tries to hit me with that cricket bat. And right now, Muslims are hitting people for sixes on an exponential rate all over the world. 2 years ago, before the elections, I did a speech down in Melbourne for the Rise Up Australia Party. In that speech, I said that when a terrorist act happens here in Australia, there would be people that would be more concerned about any potential backlash against the Muslims than what they would be for the victims of any terrorist act. Lo and behold, after the Martin Place siege, what happened? We had that ridiculous I'll Right of You campaign. I didn't see any stupid I'll Right of You campaign going viral when our soldiers were told not to wear their uniforms in public due to intelligence revealing Now, people think that this is a problem that's happening elsewhere. It's not here in Australia. Just because their numbers are low doesn't mean they're not already striving to implement Sharia law. And if the traitoring bastards on the far left have their way, the numbers of Muslims will increase, will go for the roof, and they will get it. Not any time soon, but our kids and grandkids will feel the effects of it. A smart person learns from his mistakes. An even smarter person learns from others' mistakes. As Australians, we consider ourselves smart people, so why the hell can we not learn from the mistakes other countries have made? Islam is taking over the world piece by piece. Sweden and Norway are in the middle of a rape epidemic of Muslim immigrants on native Swedes and Norwegians. France has Islamic enclaves set up where the police are too afraid to go. They have hair-trigger rioting regularly, and Jews have been murdered. And a non-Muslim walking into these enclaves will inevitably be beaten up. England also has areas where native Englishmen are too afraid to go. They also have 100 Sharia law courts set up and Sharia patrols walking around intimidating Brits. Quite a few years ago, the German Chancellor came out and said that Germany will become a Muslim country by 2050. This year alone, Israel is expecting 40,000 Jews to immigrate there from Europe due to the constant fear and intimidation, and even the killings they have suffered from Muslim immigrants. If we go back further to the Middle East, it used to be made up of various other religions. Lebanon, right up until the 70s, was a majority Christian country, and guess what? All of these countries are now Islamic. And if you think Islam is going to stop there, you're deluded. The only reason they manage to do it is because softcocks allow them to do it. We have a mountain of evidence to provide beyond any doubt whatsoever that Islam is the cause of untold misery around the world. The question is, how much crap are we really going to put up with in this country? Muslims make up only 2% here. There's more Buddhists here than Muslims, and we haven't heard a peep from them. But Muslims, we've had the Holsworthy plot. We've had the 2012 Sydney riots. We've had the Martin Place siege. We've got 100 Muslims fighting for the Islamic State right now. We had the young Muslim bloke who tried to stab the 2 cops down in Victoria. ASIO have foiled plot after plot from Muslims planning to kill us. Not to mention the thousands of death threats they send out to us over the internet whilst hiding like the pathetic little cyber cowards that they are. We've had gang rapes, and let's not forget the halal certification. You know, I've got a mate named Darren Carter. He had a brilliant idea. He said, how about we send out letters and invitations to hundreds of different Australian companies to see how much interest there would be from them to pay money to an organisation we could set up and give money to a charity, and for the money these companies spend, they get the right to put a symbol on their food saying that this is not halal and the meats have not been slaughtered to idols. I wonder how much interest we would get from companies for seeing so many of these idiot companies are screaming to get the halal symbol. Now, I've spoken to heaps of people. Better? I've spoken to heaps of people who have lived in Islamic countries who are not Muslim, and they're simply shaking their heads at us. They are saying, you dumb Aussies, what are you doing? Can you seriously not see what Islam is doing here? That they've done the same thing everywhere else. They know what's coming if we don't wake up and nip this in the bud right now, but some people simply don't want to look at the world through anything but their rose-coloured glasses. Now, I used to post horrible pictures on Facebook of the aftermath of Islamic terrorist atrocities. I've also had plenty of people delete me off their accounts because they don't want to see that sort of stuff, and I can't blame them. But guess what? If we don't wake up, as these non-Muslims that have lived through these horrors will tell you, one day we're going to see this horrific shit right here in person, not on TV and not on our computers.
Yes! Thank you!
There is a glimmer of hope from the Western Islamic world recently. We've all seen Muslims speaking out against the horrible atrocities committed by the Islamic State. I'm very encouraged by this, but I still ask the question, why has it taken them so long? We have not heard squat from the Muslim community about the tens of thousands of terrorist acts right up until the Islamic State reared its ugly head. Could it be the fact that the Islamic State are killing mostly Muslims? I wonder if the Muslims that are speaking out now, if they'd still be speaking out if the Islamic State were killing nothing but Christians and Jews.
Yeah!
They've been very vocal against ISIS, but why haven't they said squat about Hezbollah, the Muslim Brotherhood, Boko Haram and Al-Qaeda?
Yeah.
A wise man once said, you never go to the boss with a problem without offering some type of solution. We know what the Islamic agenda is, that's one problem. That can easily be squashed with the truth. But another problem we've got is the media. I once watched a James Bond movie called Tomorrow Never Dies. In this movie, the bad guy is a media giant who twists the news to shape public opinion and to advance his own evil plot. I wish this was just fiction. Unfortunately, it's not. It's no secret that the majority of journalists in this country are far left-wing bigots who are not remaining unbiased in their reporting. Over half a century ago, the publisher of the New York Times, Arthur Hayes Sulzberger, he wrote about the importance not only of the freedom of the press, but the responsibility of the press, and he states, there was a time, and it may even still be done, when miners carried canary birds with them into the pits. The bird was more sensitive than, more sensitive than man, fell over at the first whiff of the dreaded gases and gave the miner a chance to escape. But when the press fails, it is too late for democracy to escape. For only through a free press can the entire community be made aware of any abuses imposed upon parts of it, and thereby rally its collective strength to expose the minority that is seizing and misusing power. Nearly done, 2 pages. Sweating like a friggin' pedophile at a friggin' Wiggles concert.
Could be sweating like a Muslim at a rally!
Now, as I've stated, there's been 25,500 Islamic terrorist acts since 9/11. How many of these has the mainstream media reported? Furthermore, how many critics of Islam have been smeared and labelled as racist and bigots by the media? I can almost guarantee that they're going to play down the amount of numbers that are here today. So they dumb down the severity of the Islamic problem to keep us in the dark, and they flat out smear people who speak out against it. But there's also another trick that they use which goes mostly unnoticed, and I'll explain. If someone knows that Islam is evil but wouldn't have a clue about the doctrines of Islam, the media will be all over them like white on rice. Recent examples were the young political candidate who had a nervous tongue slip when she said that Islam was a country and that Jews follow Jesus Christ, when everyone knows they don't. Or Jackie Lambie has had a few incidents when the media has jumped on her for attacking Islam but not having an in-depth knowledge about Islam. This is what they do. They stay away from Islam's critics who know what they're talking about, like David Truman, but they give plenty of airtime to Islam's critics who don't. This is to create the false perception that anyone who criticises Islam is an uneducated, bigoted, six-fingered, banjo-playing redneck.
What's wrong with the banjo? What's wrong with the redneck?
According to Roy Morgan research, 71% of Australians have already said that Islam is not good for Australia. 3% of Australia are Muslim, which leaves 26% of Australians who disagree with us on this. Out of that 26%, you have to expect that 5% of every society has their idiots, and a lot of them are over there. So this leaves 21% of people who have either not been giving the facts about Islam, or like I said earlier, they're refusing to accept it. The reason they have not been given the facts is because the media will not give airtime to anyone who criticises Islam. And like I've said, they've got absolutely no idea what they're talking about. There are literally thousands of people out there who don't just know what Islam is, but who have studied it and can educate this other 21% on the true nature of Islam, and not just a sugar-coated fairy tale story of Islam that the media want us to know about. Well, guess what? They're not going to be able to ignore us anymore. There are literally thousands of patriots out in force, not just here but everywhere else today around the country. Now we know what the Islamic doctrines are, based on dividing and conquering, and it has been very successful. But history has a much greater warrior. His name was Sun Tzu. He wrote a book called The Art of War. Many businessmen and martial artists that are here today will have read this book. In the third chapter, he talks specifically about unity. This is what we need to do. We need to be unified in our struggle to get the education out there with or without the press. We can do it. The amount of people here today prove we can do it. So, here is my idea. From now on, we don't just focus on the Muslims, we focus on the media, the politicians, and our own willfully ignorant do-gooders. Every single time some douchebag celebrity, some newspaper writer, a journalist, a radio talk show host, or anyone in everyday life sticks up for Islam by lying, by editing and smearing patriots, we absolutely hammer them in sheer numbers. If some newspaper reporter writes an article about a mosque protest with the heading, racist protest against a mosque, we find out who that friggin' writer is. And we show up at his workplace holding up signs with his or her picture with the words traitor written above it. If some douchebag celebrity on a TV show like The Project or Studio 10 talks over a guest, ridicules him for speaking against Islam, we get that many people to ring the friggin' station non-stop for days on end with complaints that they will have to disconnect their friggin' phone. Or again, we show up at the studio with our signs. Give me a second. If a journalist deliberately edits footage to make a patriot look like the bad guy, like Today Tonight did to Ralph Cerminara just before Christmas, we get every single person in our movement to again find out who this prick is and harass the absolute living hell out of them. We must scare some honesty back into these bastards. If we ever want to get rid of Islam, because the truth is, as much as I can't stand what some of the people in the media are doing right now, the truth is we need them. But we need them to do their friggin' job and remain unbiased. I'm sure at the university college they must have taken some oath to remain unbiased, but they're not sticking by it. You know, I believe in God. Most of my mates, they don't. They're all atheists and agnostics, you friggin' heathens. But quite often they're bagging me out about my faith. And they say, before I go there, I'm not exactly the best example of a Christian, as you can see. But they say to me, if you're so against the evils that Muslims are doing every day, why doesn't God stop them? And you know what? I don't know why he doesn't. But if I was God, and someone said that to me, you know what I'd say? I said, no, why didn't you do something? Edmund Burke famously said, the one thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. And there's a hell of a lot of good men here today. Finally, last sentence. We are here today. Oh, sorry. Yeah, and the women too. Yeah, but Edmund Burke didn't say women. He said men. I can't misquote him. We are here today to send out a very clear message to any Muslim who wants to try and push for Sharia law. You've got zero chance of ever getting it. Or fuck off. Before I did this speech, I promised myself I'd never friggin' go there, but I'm going to do it. Fuck it. Aussie, Aussie, Aussie! Thanks for showing up. I'm going to the pub to have a beer.